To see all of you. Um, I'm very happy to inform you that I have been a Jewish educator for many, many years. My expertise is in Israel education through arts and culture. So I found out years ago that my two passions, one of them is the love of Israel, and the other one is love of arts and culture. I found out that I can join the two of them together, and ever since then, this is my field of expertise. Today, we're going to talk. Um, Today is the first of 4 sessions. They stand alone, so if you cannot attend all of them, it's fine. Uh, all of them will deal with the issue of identity and belonging through arts and culture. What shapes these concepts for us and what shapes it for the diverse population of Israel. How can this concept, identity and belonging, live side by side, and why do they sometimes clash with each other? We will explore these issues through the lens of arts and culture using different media such as visual arts, music, and poetry. I'm going to share the screen with you now. And okay, can everybody see the screen? Yes?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So the 4-part series, which today is the first session, today we're going to deal with Arabs and Jews in Israel, how to coexist. The second session will be about immigration displacement. I chose 3 women who are a Russian immigrant, an Ethiopian immigrant, and a native Arab Israeli. All of them are visual artists, and they express their identity and sense of belonging through their medium. We're going to see what the similarities and differences between them and discuss really what makes them Israelis. The third session will be the language of identity. We'll do it through poetry. Poets who write in Yiddish, in Hebrew, and in Arabic explore the boundaries of their mother tongue. We will see how that plays out through their identity and how does it affect the perception of their identity and how society sees them because of the language that they speak. And session 4 will be homeland songs. It's called in Hebrew Shirei Moledet, as identity builders. Shirei Moledet is like the most typical musical genre of old Israel, but these songs also evolved and changed, and they reflect the changes through song and music, and we're going to have a nice musical session. Identity and belonging. I framed my talk, how to coexist. I have to sort of go back a little bit. I framed it how to coexist, but I didn't put a question mark at the end because I actually don't have definitive answers. So it's going to be an exploration of narratives through the particular lens of art. So identity and the sense of belonging are the crux of the clash of narratives between Arabs and Jews. And what do I mean by that? Basically, people on the same land, they have certain identity, they have a certain sense of belonging, but they actually inhabit the same land. So before we start with the Arabs and Jews, let's start with us. Let's talk a little bit our own sense of identity and belonging. Who are you? And how do you define yourself? people that are in the room. Where do you belong? Where do you feel most that you belong? Do you have a homeland? And the last one will connect us to the rest of my talk, which is, what are the visual symbols of your identity? And by that I mean it could be, you might define yourself as an American Jew. So American, maybe it's the flag of the United States, and a Jew, it might be a Star of David. So what are the visual symbols that define you? So give it a little thought. And what you can do is you can share some of, if you feel like, you can share it in the chat. And then I might ask one or two people to share, but very short answers. So give it like a minute or so, think about it. Who are you? What are some definitions that you might have of yourself? Where do you feel most at home? Do you have a homeland? And what are the visual symbols of your identity? I don't know where my chat is.
It should be at the bottom.
Well, no, it's not.
Do you want to stop the screen sharing for a moment, and maybe you can see your screen better?
I got the chat. I'm going to put it here. Okay, I see a few answers. Who would like to share? If somebody would like to share, you can unmute yourself. And just in a few words though, you can share.
Well, I'm happy to start. I identify as a Jewish American. This is Corey. And I don't have a homeland. I have a manifestation of my family that kind of sprouted in Chicago. But I wouldn't call Illinois my homeland. But that's kind of where I'm from. I certainly have no place to go back to, as my mother used to say, don't go back to Kishinev. And visual symbols, I'm not so sure of. I really don't think of it in that way.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll go. This is Nerissa. I am a Jewish American woman. I grew up on the East Coast, so I kind of relate to New York as my homeland, although I don't feel like I want to go there very often. And I feel most comfortable here in where I live now is Pacifica and San Francisco. And I also have a lot of relatives growing up. Everybody was Hungarian all my relatives on both sides, Hungarian Jews. And although I have never been there, I sort of have a feeling for Hungary, obviously not politically now, but for the culture and the past.
Thank you, Narissa. So I see quite a lot wrote on the chat. I'm a leftist, progressive, activist, Jewish American, etc. Western San Francisco, where I feel most at home. I'm also an atheist Jew. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to go back to my share screen. I don't know where it is now. Okay, there we go. I want to share with you one thing that my son said when he was about 13 years old, and we started living here at the now trendy Nopa. It was not that way then, and there were mostly Black kids on the block. And he said to me, when I'm with kids on the block, I'm the white kid. When I'm with white kids, I'm the Jewish kids. When I'm with Jews, I'm the Israeli kid. And when I'm with Israelis, I'm the American kid. So our identity sometimes changes according also to how people see us. How did they define us? So it's not always one way or the other. It's fluid. I'm going to now share before we start with the symbols of identity, I want to make a clarification when I talk about Arabs that are sometimes citizens of Israel and Arabs that are not citizens of Israel who live on the West Bank in Gaza, because when I chose works of art, I didn't distinguish between the two because they really believe and think and are entitled to feeling that they are part of the same people, the Palestinian people. If you look at the map, when we talk about within the green line, this part you see is the green part. It's within the green line. And beyond the green line where the territories, this is the West Bank and this is Gaza. When Hamas in Gaza talks about free Palestine, they refer to the entirety of this area on the right map. In the West Bank, the Palestinian Authority that was formed in 1994 after the Oslo Agreement, when Israel sits with them, eventually for peace talks, Palestine is that area. So again, it's fluid. And so when I chose the artwork, when I say Arabs, I mean Palestinians from both sides of the green line. When I did my research on Palestinian art, several things came up right away. And those were the symbols of the identity and belonging. What happened is Palestinian art after 1948, the rise of symbolism in the Palestinian art took a prominent position in all the art that came from the region. Beforehand, they had religious symbols, they had beautiful imagery of the past, but now instead of it, and of course 1948 is considered for them the Nakba, which is the catastrophe, when they lost their land and they had to leave. Many of them never came back. And so the symbolism was the important thing for them to hold on to their identity and the sense of belonging. And those are the symbols that came up. Prickly pear, in Hebrew it's called sabra, it's a cactus. Olive tree, oranges, key, suitcase, barbed wire, the dove, and the map. Now, I color-coded it because the prickly pear, olive tree, and oranges are symbols of connection to the land. Jaffa oranges is for a particular region and city, but it's also a symbol of connection to the land. The key and the suitcase are universal symbols of displacement. Barbed wire, displacement also, but also confinement in camps, for example. The dove is also universal symbols of hope and peace. And the map is a symbol of borders. What is interesting is that the same symbols that are prominent in Palestinian art are also prominent in Israeli art. They share the same symbols. And this is why there is what I see as a clash of narratives. You have the same symbols, you have the same land, yet they mean something different to all of you. Visual symbols are important because, as we know, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and they are much stronger than words. So we're going to look now at those symbols from both cultures, the Israeli Jewish one and the Palestinian Arab. So the first one we saw was the prickly pear or the sabra. And of course it is the for Israelis, it's a quintessential sabra, the quintessential Israeli kid. On the left, we have a cartoon by Dosh, who is called Srulik. This Srulik is like little Israel. It's like a diminutive of Israel, Srulik. And Dosh, from many, many years, this is the symbols of Israel. So Dosh, the cartoonist, used him to describe the history, describe political issues, describe the state of the nation, etc. And in Holon, in Israel, there is a museum of cartoon and caricature, and this Srulik is standing there on the grass. They made a little a sculpture out of him. Also, you of course know the classic hummus sabra, and of course, in the invasion of the hummus industry in the United States now, everywhere you can find it. But for the Palestinian, the same prickly pear symbolizes something quite different. It symbolizes rootedness in the land. It also symbolizes resilience and resistance. It serves as, in many Arab places, Arab villages, it serves as a living fence. It's a barrier. When you see on the bottom picture, there is a fence, it's called living fence. There's a fence made out of the prickly pear. They just let them grow this way. It serves as a border for, or a barrier for, and a landmarker for your house. In that way, it serves so that livestock like cows and sheep and goats cannot go out, and intruders cannot come in. If you travel throughout Israel and you see those living barriers, and there's no house or something behind them, you might remember that there were some Arab villages there that were destroyed or they were left empty. So many places, sometimes when you go through Israel and you see them, don't forget that that's what it could have been. The paradox about this prickly pear or the cactus or the sabra as it's called, that it's actually not native to the area. So while it's a symbol of being a native Israeli or a native Palestinian, it's actually America, the Americas, South America. And of course, you know, if you've been to Mexico, it's also a symbol for them. So it's not even a native to the land. On the left here, this is, his name is Ahmad Muhammad Yassin, and he lives in Nablus, Shechem in Hebrew, in the West Bank, and he actually paints on those cactus, large fences of cactuses. He paints right there in the area. He doesn't bring it to the studio, but outdoors. And he paints, you know, images of children born out of it. Or on the top left, there is a woman going like this. So it's really very poignant and very strong when you see a whole bunch of cactus that he paints on, and he leaves it there outside. On the right, there is a cactus tree, cactus plant on a ledge on the roof. This is an Israeli-born Arab, Durar Bakri, is from Akko, and this is on his house at the south of Tel Aviv. It symbolizes, since it symbolizes borders and boundaries, I think it looks like he replanted himself from Akko to Tel Aviv. And it's also on the ledge, so it also serves as a border between some part of the roof to another part of the roof. But he also said, I am planted here now and I live in South Tel Aviv. South Tel Aviv is not a very pretty place, and many, many foreign workers live there. It's like a slum in a way. In some places, it looks like a slum. So we see that the cactus, again, is from both cultures, the Hebrew and the Arab. One of my favorite graphic designers, Yossi Lemel, this is on a catalog of Palestinian and Israeli art for peace. It's called Both Sides of Peace, and the links between the both cactus tree leaves are colors of the Palestinian flag and the Israeli flag. He wrote in the catalog, both sides try to get closer, but actually end up hurting each other because of the pricks. Strings trying to get from one side of the cactus to the another, and unfortunately not always working the way that we hope. We get now to the olive tree. That's the second one, the second image. Of course, olive tree are old. They're very fruitful. There are many, many ways you can use the olive tree for eating the olives, for the oil. And they have been on the land for hundreds of years, some of them. Therefore, they became a symbol not only for the connection to the land, but in the West Bank, they became a symbol of the uprooting of the Palestinian people. Groves are one of the agricultural industries of the West Bank and Israel. And this poster on the left is based on an actual photo from 2015, where the Israeli army, uprooted olive trees as a form of punishment. And sometimes it's also a form of land acquisition. The artist actually photoshopped the army out and kept only the woman and the tree. You will notice also that the colors, green, red, and black, are the colors of the Palestinian flag. There is also a quote from Mahmoud Darwish, who is like the poet laureate of the Palestinian people and the Arab nations around. If the olive trees knew the hands that planted them, their oil would become tears. So it's a very poignant symbol for the Palestinian people, both the connection to the land and the uprooting. For Israelis, for Jews, the olive tree, of course, is a part of the 7 species. Olive oil used to be used to anoint kings in the Bible, and it's a symbol of peace, the dove of the deluge, Noah's Ark, and it appears here on the left. It's a poster, Independence Day poster for the 6th year of independence. Therefore, they have 6 leaves, olive leaves, and 6 new stones to build a house, and an old menorah, etc. This is the emblem of Israel. On the right, there's a menorah and olive branches on both sides. Oranges. Oranges. Now it's hard to tell from those works of art which one is Palestinian and which one is Israeli. Would you care to guess, any of you?
I think the oranges are Israeli, and the lady maybe Palestinian.
Yeah, you're right. The lady is Palestinian. So the left one, the one on the left is Orange Harvest in Neve Tzedek, which is the first neighborhood of Tel Aviv, and close to Jaffa, between Jaffa and Tel Aviv. And this is by Nahum Gutman in 1967. And there is, if you ever visit Neve Tzedek, this house looks like the Shlush house, which is the first house in Neve Tzedek. And these people are doing the harvest of the oranges. On the right, there's a Madonna of the Oranges, it's called, by Ismail Shamut, also very famous Palestinian artist. And he took a Madonna from the Renaissance artwork, and instead they painted a young Palestinian mother holding the child in a grove of orange in full bloom. You can see the beautiful bloom. So Shamut painted this particularly hopeful piece, actually. It's an interesting story about him, because he did return to his childhood home in Lida. In Hebrew, it's called Lod, after being 50 years in the West Bank and not being able to return to his home. So this was his way to express the happiness he had for returning to his home in Lod. Lod is where the airport is, where Ben Gurion Airport is. We're getting now to the key and the suitcase. And again, it's on the left, is the Palestinian images. The key returns many, many times in art that you see from Palestine. It's the key, some of them, the actual keys of the homes that they had to live. They carry it, sometimes they hang it on a chain, and it's an international, again, symbol of expulsion or displacement. On the right, there is my father's suitcase by Chaim Maor, and it's, as you can see, the number, there's a light inside the suitcase, and the number is the number that was tattooed on the arm of his father in Auschwitz. So we have a duality that is quite amazing of those symbols of displacement and of remembrance also. The key on the left, they're holding those sort of their hand to the watch to say, when is it time already for us to return? And they're also holding a prayer bead, Islamic prayer bead. And the last one I'm going to show today, because I think we're okay. This one I chose the dove, even though the dove of peace is what we want to see. This is something I chose because it's sort of a take on the dove. So it's a dove of peace, but it's not really about peace right here. On the right is the Palestinian. We see that the dove has a tear there's a tear of blood, perhaps. There is a blue tear, and the key returns. And we are seeing also the F is for Palestine. And on the bottom, free Palestine. On the left, again, it's my favorite, as you see already, Yossi Lemel. And he takes the dove of peace, and he has A, B, C, D, etc. It's a connotation to the areas A, B, and C in the West Bank. And also it looks like it might remind you of sometimes there is like a cow and the different areas of pieces of meat, the rump and the steak from this and from there. And so this dove of peace is really not exactly something that will fly and will bring us peace, but is carved into different areas and pieces. And it's called piece of dove rather than the dove of peace. The last is the map. This is a very strong image that is the land of Israel, the map of Israel in the shape of a Palestinian woman. The artist had many murals painted, and it's called Exodus and the Exodus and Odyssey of the Palestinian people. This is the last panel of those murals, and it has most of the images, most of the symbols that we talked about already implanted in it. You see the doves, there are symbols of displacement, there are a bunch of people trying to get to the land, and oranges, etc. The map here is also a woman, and I think that if any of you went to a Jewish camp, maybe you did stand in the shape of the Israeli map, but this is a part of a poster for a play called He Walks Through the Field, which Moshe Shamir wrote. If you know Enula Shamir, that was her father, a very famous author. And the woman is standing in the shape of the entirety of the land of Israel. So those are the mutual symbols that Israel and the Palestinians have. And this is why we talk about a clash of narratives. People sit on the same land between the river and the sea. We have two people. They both see this land as their homeland, and they have to find ways to coexist within those borders. In Israel, there are 7 or more, like eight cities that are called mixed cities. It means that the Arab population is at least 20% there or more, because this is the Arab population in Israel is about 21%. In a place like Lod or Lida, there are 40% Arabs. The majority of those people identify themselves as Arab or Palestinians by nationality and Israeli by citizenship. They have the same rights as Jewish Israelis, but face really widespread discrimination and are underrepresented in many areas of leadership. The history of separation has meant that two people mostly live apart except in those cities. Now, I don't know if you know, but in recent tensions further strained the relationship between Arabs and Jews. But now the entry of an Arab political party, the Islamist United Arab List, or Ra'am, they are now in government for the first time, and I think it signaled that progress could be in the future. When there is a dialogue between Arabs and Jews, they should be talking and listening with compassion, no narrative of history sparring or symmetry, no blaming, etc. This is very, very hard to achieve. We all hope that this could be achieved through working together, etc. But it's really, you know, sometimes I listen to people, Americans mostly, who say, how come they cannot sit together and talk? How come this cannot be achieved? Really, they are in the same land, they can come together and sit. And it's true. In small groups, many people strive for that. In many cities, there are groups of people who meet and support each other and respect each other, but not always this is the case. I will not do my job if I told you that it's easy. And therefore, I want to show you the opposite of coexistence in a way, even though at the end it switches. I want to show you a clip of two singers rap. It's a rap clip. The clip that I will share with you, I will give you the crux of the thing, so in advance, so you can understand what's going on. The setting is the stage for Arab rapper Sameh Zakut and Israeli educator Uriah Rosenman. They embark on what is called No Bon Nedaber Dugri, let's talk straight. Israelis, when they want to talk, you know, honestly, they say, let's talk Dugri. Dugri is a word actually in Arabic, honestly. So it's a 6.5 minute rap released in May, just 2 months ago. exactly when Israel and Gaza headed towards a ceasefire. Now, during that time, there was bombing from Gaza, but really what was really jarring for most Israelis is that in Arab cities, in mixed cities such as Akko and Lod, there were uprising by both Arabs and Jews against each other. It was from both sides. It was terrible to see. Arabs were burning restaurants that were very famous. In Akko, the guy from the restaurant, Uri Buri, I don't know if you ever ate there, actually came out and said, Arabs burned my restaurant, but more Arabs helped me build back. So there's this feeling that sometimes things like this happen. In other cities, some groups of Jews came from the West Bank to destroy Arab property. So it was a terrible time. During that time, they come up with this clip that they worked actually many, many months beforehand, and they are talking one to another. So the timing was lucky for them, but I'm going to tell you a little bit what exactly they're saying, because some of the subtitles are not very good and some of it is fast. So the Israeli guy starts, and he starts to accuse the Arab guy as a representative of the Arab Israeli community for not serving in the army, for harassing Israeli women, for carrying out honor killing, for being a terrible driver, and for shooting rifle in the air at wedding, and not paying taxes and building homes. The Arab responds in a similar way, rapping in Hebrew and Arabic, telling the Israeli guy that Israel started as a melting pot but have become racist, that all Arabs call themselves Palestinians because they are, that the Nakba is his grandmother's reality, that Israelis don't want to live next to Arabs, but Arab construction crews build their homes, and that Israelis have to stop using the Holocaust as an excuse. Now, it might sound terrible. At the end, though, they eat the hummus together. They work together in a auto repair shop, and they eat the hummus together. This is not something that they invented. If you, I can send you a link. There was a rap song 3 years ago by an American guy that rapped, "I'm not a racist," and his name was, I'm looking for his name, I don't remember his name, and this was a rap between a black guy and a white guy, just as Black Lives Matter started. So this is inspired by that song, and I'm going to share it now with you. At the end, though, it's very important. They actually say that they have to live together because they both don't have another country. And it comes from a song, "I Have No Other Country," "En Li Eretz Acheret," a very famous song. They also, wait, let me see. You can also hear in the background, the music is actually an Arabic style Mizrahi style of the Hatikva. Da la 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 la. So pay attention to that as well. So I'm going to put this on. ממש גרוע, אני גרוע ביותר היום.
בוא נדבר דוגרי, לא מבין באיזה קטע אתם הערבים כועסים. רוצים שוויון זכויות ואצלנו במדינה לחיות, אבל צבא אתם לא עושים. חנין זועבי, אחמד טיבי, לא סתם אנחנו תמיד בוחרים את ביבי. נערתם לקלפי ושוב קיבלתם זיבי. להאמין בדו-קיום זה סתם להיות נאיבי. אז וואלה כן, כשאני שומע את המבטא אני תמיד בוחן. רק אל תגיד לי גזענות, תפסיק להתמסכן. אתה מזדהה כפלסטיני, אז איך תהיה שכן? שמע, אתה דפוק. איפה שיש ערבים, יש פיגועים. ואתם עוד צפים להיכנס למועדונים? אולי תפסיקו להטריד לנו את הנשים? יעני, אתם עוד תקועים בעבר. רצח על כבוד המשפחה, נו בחייאת, מה נסגר? גרים בחמולות, יורים בחתונות, נוהגים כמו נבלות, מתעללים בחיות, גונבים מכוניות, דופקים לנשים שלכם מכות, ואז תמיד רק תלונות. מתי תתחילו למלא חובות? זה מרגיש די אבוד. אפילו בדואי לובש מדים נראה לי חשוד. נו, איך נדבר על איחוד? על כל רופא ורוקח יש ערבי שהיה מעדיף לחיות לחוד. אז מה, לחכות שאיזה מחמוד ייקח סכין ויצעק יטבח אל יהוד? אין ארוחות חינם. תלמדו לדבר עברית קינה, נתחיל משם. שלמו ארנונה ותבנו חוקי כמו כולם, שחררו כבר את הקוראן ותיפתחו לעולם. אני חיובי. אני לא גזען, הגנן שלי ערבי. אני לא גזען, אני קונה בשר בחינאווי וגם נרגילות ביפו אצל איזה ערבי. פשוט איבדתי תקווה, קשה לראות את היום שנוכל לחיות בשלווה. כנראה כהנא צדק שצעק הפרדה, אולי באמת עדיף לכם בעזה ובגדה. אני לא גזען, אני נשבע, אבל יש בינינו תאום תרבותי ויש גם סיבה. יהדות זה תיקון עולם, חיים ואהבת חינם, ואתם מחנכים ילדים לשנאה בשם האסלאם, הנה לעולם. ורק אכפת לכם מאללה ונכבה והג'יהאד והכבוד ששולט ביצר, מנהיגים שמטיפים להילחם בכל היתר, ציבור עיוור שלא חושב ורק הולך כמו עדר. תתלוננו על הכל, תבכו כמה שרע, תאשימו את כולם במקום להביט במראה. תנו לנו עוד כמה סיבות לפחד ולא לנסות להתקרב ויחד לחיות, נראה שאין מה לעשות. סתם כפויה טובה, למה שלא תעשו שירות לאומי? עזוב צבא. איך אתם מעיזים בכלל לקחת תקציבים? אם לא תשרתו את המדינה מבחינתי אתם אויבים, יא ערבים. אני לא גזען, פשוט תופס מרחק, זה הכל. צחי התחתן עם לוסי, זה גדול, אלק לא שייך לשמאל, כוכב של פאודה והערבייה סתם פרסום זול. הוכחתם שאפשר גם אחרת, הרי הגעתם כבר לכנסת וגם לנבחרת, אבל גם שם אתם לא באמת רוצים להתחלק. סוס טרויאני, סכין בגב, זרע עמלק. יאללה, הרבה שתתיח, יא אחמד, בזה תמיד היית טוב. רק אל תעשה לי עבודה ערבית ואל תעבוד חפיף. אם אתה לא מרוצה תמיד יש תחליף. אתם קוראים להביא כמה סודנים, כיף? אני לא גזען. מבין שיש עוד צד לסיפור, אני לא חי בסרט. אני לא גזען. אנחנו חולקים את המדינה, אבל השנאה לא נגמרת. הלוואי שהמציאות הייתה אחרת. נשבע לך שאני לא גזען. בוא נדבר דורי, אתם היהודים שכחתם מה זה להיות מיעוט. התחלתם כור היתוך, אבל עכשיו נשאר הכור אטומי, אפרטהייד וגזענות. ודי עם החרטא התרבותית. חצי מהלקסיקון שלכם מילים בערבית. סבבה, דחקה, יאללה, בעסה, אחלה דוואווין. רסמי סחבק ערבית, עשתי בחיים אתה לא תבין. خلص أنا فلسطيني وهذا الموجود خليك ساكت. لو مروا 2000 سنة أنا هون ثابت. من لغتي خايف طص فيك جاهز زمنك فائت. أنا ما ببرر عمليات أني نجد اللي يموت. بس 70 سنة احتلال أكيد تيت نجدوت. شتن بطخين منجل خبيجين ما تسمعوت. هناك ببيش بنسحتش لي زمن تسيقوت يا الشرموت. אומרים ערבי טוב, זה ערבי מת. ואז עוד מתלוננים שלא משרת. הממשלה הזו עושה אותי אזרח סוג ב'. قانون القومية على السلطة بيزيد. مجان دافيد بيمثلنيش ولا حتى النشيد. تحط لي ضوء بالحارة والله إنه يوم عيد. الدولة مش شايفاني إنسان شايفاني شهيد. أنت دبر بال شيفيون بناتل كشلנו שום שוויון. שב תשתוק תקשיב זה דבר ראשון. איך אני אקים עסק אם אני לא נכנס למועדון? גם מזרחים אוכלים את החרא הזה בגלל דמיון, לא? זה לא נורמלי. ב-48 גירשתם את המשפחה שלי. האוכל עוד היה חם כשפרצתם לבתים. כובשים ומכחישים לשמוע את האמת זה לא נעים. تعرف بتعرفش عربي وبتعرفش جارك بتكاش اسكن جنبك ولا بنت لك دارك انت لو ده خلف دوفي كل بيكون بنات باغ وبحس حالي في اي بي يقول جهه حارس انخ مستاج بكل مش تمامرين من مشتويات ايش تخم الصين ايش تعمل دي نوتغفيوت هتنو تصري تلاني را يلا نمعسلي انا سامح من الرمله انسى اصلي الو جيزان انا غضبان انا مشتاق لعيلتي مش شايفها من زمان قالك مخنخين السنقه بشما اسلام بغ 20 שנה אתם מבצעים בעזה רצח עם כמה דם שפכתם ורק אכפת לכם מכסף וכוח והכיבוש ולשלוט כעם נבחר עברתם את השואה אז אתם חושבים שהכל מותר הרסתם את יפו והכל מה יהיה מחר על ايش بتعيط ولا مش انت هالشروك كنت مكرم عنا باوروبا قتلوك بعدين تعطيتني باسبورت شوف تعمليش معروف حتى لو بيتي مكسوف فك الظروف مش رح امشي مكفوف بس אני עומד זקוף הלא מהערבים שאתם עושים להם מילוף יש לי חלומות ושאיפות אני רוצה לעוף וואלק סמע אני לא שקוף תזכור טוב את הפרצוף אתה חייב להודות שאתם עם של גזענים אפילו מדינת תל אביב וכל שאר השמאלנים אבל לפחות הם מנסים לא לראות אותנו כשונים أنا مش عنصري بس زهقت فكرت إني بكابوس ولما فقت فهمت حياتي تسوى الشكل بدي أعيش وبمنعوني الحياة الحلوة اللي عليها حلمت אתה דואג לעצמך אבל פוגע בי אתה עוד תלמד לקבל אותי אני ערבי אם רק נפתח את הלב את העיניים יא صاحبي נראה שיש אותו אלה כומר אימאם ורבי أنا مش عنصري بدي ابني بكرة يفتخر فيه ويعرف إني عملت المستحيل הלא גזען לשנינו נארץ אחרת וכאן השינוי מתחיל
Okay, that was strong. I found the name of the rapper that did the original I'm Not a Racist, Joyner Lucas, if you want to check him out and see where this comes from. So, just a minute, let me get back. Okay, I'm looking for my keynote. There we go. So you see that in order to actually have a conversation, to have a true conversation and to coexist, you have to understand that in the background, those feelings of both the Israeli and the Arab are there. Some people think like that. This is a reality for both sides, that there are some people who say I'm not a racist, but they are. And to come to the table, you have to realize that those feelings are there. And from there, you can actually have the true open conversation and coexistence. And there are many that right after what happened in May and throughout, not only then, they have groups coming together. We have a friend in Jaffa that sent us an invitation to come to the bookstore and cafe called the Jaffa, where they have always groups talking, calling for dialogue, talking together, helping each other. In the Galilee, many groups came together, a group of Arab Muslim women from neighborhoods meet with Jewish women from another neighborhood, and they begin a dialogue of listening and rebuilding trust. And I did love the fact that at the end of the clip, they said, we have no other country. Because both people have no other country and they have to live side by side. I also want to share with you some artists' response to what happened in May that we also took part in. The first one was a cartoonist and a graphic designer artist called Shoshke. His alter ego is called Shoshke Engelmeyer. And because some Jews marked Arab homes with a special mark so people will know that they can come and destroy them or break windows, he was so outraged that he made stickers for people that say, here live human being. Doesn't matter who lives here, human being live here. And so many schools, like this is a Arab Jewish school in Jaffa, had a big sign from him, and it says, here study and learn human beings. And he made all the stickers. Anybody could ask for stickers from him that he would send a PDF to, and Zahava and I asked for a sticker that says, here live two loving women, and in English he said two loving humans live here, and he put San Francisco in, and we hang it. It's hanging in our kitchen. So this is another one, Mira Awad, who is an actress, a singer. You might have seen, if you watched Arab Labor, the TV series, she was on it, and she was upset with what was happening on social media with people calling each other names, and she started an initiative called the Good Word Project, and she has T-shirts and other things printed with the word both in English, in Arabic, and in Hebrew, and she asked people to come up with their word, and I asked her for the word Shalom, which is dream, and she did. She chose this word, and we got the T-shirt, Zava and I, and you can support this initiative. It's called the Good Word Project, and all the profit go to educational programs for tolerance and dialogue. So private people, artists, just came up with all kinds of wonderful initiatives to promote coexistence and to promote tolerance and to bring back, this coexistence is a very delicate balance, and it's something that you have really to preserve and promote, all of us together, and I hope that we will. So I'm closing this session, and you can stay, all of you can stay for a question and answer. And I thank you for attending, and peace to everybody. We have no other country. Yeah, we have the gallery. So you can unmute yourself and
yeah, you can put yourself on gallery view now so you can see everybody again.
I can see everybody. Put gallery view.
I don't see where I can put it.
Okay.
The gallery view.
You are in gallery.
I am.
Sarah,
Okay.
any questions?
Oh.
So thank you very much. That was very interesting. And I'm reading a book called A Paragon, and it's really heavy. And I've read plenty of things about Arab-Israeli situations, and this is good to have put this in perspective. So I'm glad that I came to the class. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Narissa.
How did you find the works that you found, that you presented to us?
The artwork I've been working at for many years, and I just collect them for myself. I use many of them in a program that I created and printed. It's called On the Map. I think I did some of it with Or Shalom, and the conflict through maps and through images like this is something I have a bunch of things on my computer for cactus, for home. I have all kinds of names of topics that I collect the art, and I sort of put it in store for whatever it is that I'm doing. And I also search online. So for this particular one, when I looked for Palestinian art, and this is where I saw an article about the different symbols, and I said, oh my God, it's the same as Israeli symbols. So I said, okay, I can do that.
Amazing.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Vavi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question to ask.
Yes, Martin.
Of course, I found everything very interesting, and especially that last video.
Yes.
Of Bo Nedaber Dugri. Let's talk serious. Let's talk honestly.
Yes.
When I speak to Israelis in Israel, whom I've expected to be more on the left and more understanding, etc., young Israelis and older Israelis, the response I get is not the Arabs want
so
to
win,
the Arabs are...
You're too low.
What I get is that how do you expect us to deal with people who at the core want Israel destroyed or want to take over all of the state of Israel? Or when they speak about free Palestine, they don't mean the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. They mean from the Jordan to the Mediterranean. And I'm very disappointed that such people aren't aware of people in the Arab community who are peaceniks, who want peace and want dialogue. But at the same time, I do empathize with them, because there is a great deal of this all or nothing attitude by, at least, I don't know, is it true? Is there the majority of Arabs basically want to take over all of Israel or not? Yes or no? Is it a one state or two state solution?
Well, I think that I'm not a political expert.
Right.
I will start with that. I think that from what I understand, there is what you want and what realistically you can achieve. So I think there are on the right and on the Israeli side also on the right side, on the right wing, who think also that the entirety of this green, the green map that I showed, entirety, the greater Israel, there are Jewish voices also calling for the entirety of Israel. So it's on both sides. There are those who are
all or nothing.
All or nothing. And we know that realistically, we will not have all or nothing, neither of us.
No.
So this is why a peace agreement is necessary, and this is why a dialogue is necessary, not only on the level that we are, we are talking over hummus in Jaffa somewhere, but on the political level. And this is something we are not able to achieve so far.
There's no question there's extremism on both sides, but the question is, what is the percentage of Israelis that want to incorporate the whole West Bank and kick out all the Arabs? And what is the percentage on the Arab side, the Palestinian side, that want to take over the whole state of Israel? It's not a matter of finding extremes on both sides. Of course there are extremes on both sides in all conflicts.
Martin, I don't have an answer to that. In my capacity, I'm looking for other things, so you'll have to check online what percentage of, and you might get all kinds of answers. Not all of them will be news or fake news, etc. So good luck with that. But we're going to concentrate on what we think that we will achieve, which will be to really live side by side and together. Yes, George, you want to ask? Thank you, Martin, for your question. Yes.
You're welcome.
I think this idea of symbols that are shared by both sides with different meanings is a really profound one to go away with. And I'm wondering, in your research, have you found any symbols that are shared by both sides with the same meaning, but that aren't also just universal symbols? Is there any Israel-Palestine identity that can be symbolized without identifying as Arab or Israeli?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I mean, there are several symbols that are actually the same, but that pertain to the specific land, like the cactus and the
olive tree
and the orange are very typical to the area. They might not be, they might be also typical to other areas, but they're really very much of the land of Israel, the Eretz Israel in Palestine. So, what?
Well, I'm thinking of a symbol that would symbolize unity rather than be interpreted as Israel is my homeland or Palestine is my homeland. That wouldn't lead to this identification as separate.
Well, the dove is usually thought of as a unity symbol. It's a
what about the dove as a symbol of peace? I mean,
yeah.
The dove is the only one.
Okay.
We're leaving.
That's now because.
You want to ask a question?
Okay.
No.
No.
Just tell you we're leaving. We're leaving.
We're leaving.
Bye. Bye.
Any other questions?
I don't know how to leave here. Here we go.
It was really interesting, Vavi. It was really interesting.
Naomi, you want to?
Yes.
No, I was just saying it was really interesting listening to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much and look forward to the next lecture.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vavi. You are so resourceful and wonderful to share all this with us. I am a big fan for many years, and I thought shared symbols was so powerful to consider. I never knew that Sabra, for example, is a big symbol in Palestinian art. I never knew that. It makes so much sense, but I just didn't know. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Noah.
Laila Tov.
Okay, Laila Tov.
Thank you so much. You're a wonderful presenter. Very, very interesting and provocative. Thank you.
Okay, enjoy the rest of the night.
Ad hashavua haba.
And I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yofi.
Laila Tov, toda.
Bye.
Bye, toda.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye, Laila Tov.